Welcome to the Modern Yogi Podcast. An exploration of ancient wisdom.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back. We are on episode number 65. Yes.
Welcome back, everybody. We are so happy to be here all together again, be back with you guys listening from whatever part of the world you are at,
On
what?
part of the world?
Our Instagram is
At Modern Yogi Podcast.
Is that what you were trying to say?
No, what part of the world you are from?
We're happy that you're with us.
I understand.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting so many random messages from all over the world, and we're
really
so
have.
grateful.
Yeah.
So grateful.
Thank
I
you,
thought it
Lois.
was just like America and, you know, a little bit of my cousins in India.
I thought
that
it was just
it.
like barely California.
I know.
But literally there's you guys all over the planet hearing us, which is still mind-boggling. So we so much appreciate you guys.
We are
Yes.
so grateful to have you listen.
Yes, my
Yeah.
name is Shama Sangeeta.
My name is Priyadarshini.
And I am Shamali, and welcome to the Modern Yogi Podcast.
And we are on chapter 9, text number 2.
Yes.
Right.
Very brief recap of the last episode, please.
We just started the chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, right? We talked about, we don't know yet what it's going to be. Krishna's preparing us. He's like,
Right.
are you ready?
He's
Are
like,
you
I'm
ready?
going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you a secret.
And it just keeps getting more and more and more intimate because already chapters 7 and 8 were even more confidential. In chapter 7, we discussed the opulent potencies of Krishna, of the Supreme, his different energies, the inferior and superior nature, and all these material manifestations. So now in chapter 9, the glories of the Lord will be delineated. They're going to get even more confidential. Like Krishna's basically going to reveal the deepest secret that barely anyone out there knows unless you are reading the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah,
now.
if you were dating Krishna, this is the trauma bonding part of the relationship. So we're getting deep now. This is really exciting.
Basically, Prabhupada gets a little ahead and he tells us a little information, right? And he tells us that this 9th chapter is actually about pure devotion. And if you listen to the last chapter, we talked about a few ways in which you can express devotional service. And so if you're interested in that, you can go check it out. But for now,
You want to do it really fast, the 9 things?
oh yeah, sure.
Are you ready?
Yes, ready.
Okay. Hearing, chanting, remembering,
Serving, worshiping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything.
It sounded kind of demonic at first, and then it got really like high pitched.
Is that, could they understand that? Or were we just like mumbling everything?
But then go listen to the last episode if you want to know the 5 ways to develop a stronger bond with Krishna.
5 plus
I love
4.
that. Because you know what?
It's 9.
Sorry, the 9 ways to develop a stronger bond with Krishna.
You know, math is not her forte.
You know,
And you
know
always
that.
want to associate with the math buffs because before you start anything, you're like, for those math buffs out there, I'm catering to you guys.
There's like 3 people out there who really like math.
Hey, I'm there too.
4 people out there.
And basically, we get deeper and deeper in this knowledge because, as it said in the last purport, simply understanding that we're not material is not enough. It's not sufficient. That might be the beginning of spiritual realization, but we really need to know the difference between what are the activities of the body and the spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not the body. And I really like that because that kind of starts getting into what's the difference with matter and spirit.
Yeah. And the first step to understanding any of this is understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we have this understanding, then these chapters will be very beneficial. So
Exactly. And basically, we ended off the purport. The last text 1 was talking about not being envious of Krishna, because so many times out there we can be envious of someone who has something that we don't. You know what I mean? So a lot of different scholarly academic commentators or just people out there might be envious of Krishna. That might sound funny, but if you start breaking down the psychology of it, we start having this deep-seated envy is at the deep in her heart that we kind of clawing at different things and motivates different actions that we don't even are on a very subconscious level. So no one can explain the Bhagavad Gita or give this knowledge if they have envy, if they're an envious person. So that's why we need to understand him from a
envious of Krishna, right?
envious of Krishna, right? And that envy can manifest itself in envious of your fellow people, envious of your neighbor who has this that you don't have, and then ultimately it'll go up to envious of Krishna, which might sound like a leap of like someone might think, how can we be envious of Krishna? Krishna has it all, but
That's why.
But that's why.
Because
when
we're
someone
here
who has it all, or someone who is loved deeply, of course,
Right.
like there's sometimes that seed that grows like, oh, why don't I have it all?
Right.
Why aren't I the most?
Or
Right.
like, why is my life so hard? I just want to have everything perfect, right?
Right.
And I want everything as amazing as ideal as Krishna has it. Why
Exactly.
why can the world be about me?
exactly.
Why can I be the center of everything and everyone's taking care of me and paying attention to me?
And I think when you hear it out loud like that, someone might think, I don't have those thoughts, but they're deep feelings that we're just putting words to them. They're feelings that motivate action. So when we approach this text from a place of envy, we won't be able to unlock the hidden secrets. And we're on the chapter that's all about the most confidential knowledge. So if we want to be able to understand that Krishna is the true supreme, we have to approach it and hear from people that are pure, that are transcendental to all of these emotions, lower emotions like greed. And then we'll be able
Greed,
to unlock.
envy, anger. Yep.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. The invocation, ladies, please.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Translation. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual teacher opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. All right. Chapter 9, text number 2, Priyadarshini.
This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It's the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed.
I like how you read that. It almost like it was a secret.
Yeah, you read it like it was a secret. One more time, Priyadarshini.
Okay. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed.
Wow.
Ooh, I love
So
this.
I love this because, and we can break this down now, and boy, does this purport is a long one. So we did all the legwork to try to give you the essence of it. So basically this chapter of the Gita is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before, because every religious path, no matter what path you're on specifically, at its essence is to develop devotional, loving service to Krishna, to God, whatever you want to call him. It's love of Krishna at its core.
Yeah, it's pure devotion. It's like we talked about the last chapter, right? And I love because Krishna hasn't specifically said so, that it is talking about devotional service,
Right.
But he's kind of hinting at
He's
it.
alluding to it.
Yeah,
a little
he's
bit.
alluding.
Look at
He's
you with
saying-
that word.
Alluding.
He's saying it is joyfully performed, right? Like
Yeah.
he's already giving us context. Like it's not like, oh, devotional service is like menial tasks and you're miserable doing it.
Right.
Right? And so it's really cool. Krishna's setting it up. He's like building this knowledge, like kind of, like when you're like, I don't know, what's a good example? So you want to share a really cool story and then you kind of, so let me tell you. So this happened on a Tuesday and the sun was bright.
We're
and
setting
like,
the scene.
You're setting the scene and you're setting
Right.
all the information. So I think Krishna's doing the same thing here. Like we're on text 2 and he's like, okay, it's everlasting. It's joyfully performed. It
Right.
is super secret.
Yeah.
I tell it to
Right.
people who are cool like you.
Yeah.
We're in the cool kids club.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a movie trailer. He's like a movie trailer to
okay.
chapter 9. Like these couple verses where he's like, okay, this is gonna be a secret, okay?
Right,
And if you come really close, I'll tell you. Okay.
love that.
And then it crescendos into the knowledge, which will be
Right.
great.
And I love how they say this 9th chapter is the king of all such knowledge. It's the essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas, which right above in the purport, they say among the principal philosophers in India, there's Vyasadeva, who's going to come up later on. He's the author of the Vedanta Sutra. So a lot of the ancient knowledge from this ancient wisdom from India comes from the Vedas, which is kind of like a handbook to life. And at its essence is this 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah,
It's the king of all knowledge. And to wrap up that sentence, it says, it's the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service.
Yeah. So basically, Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to go on to the second sentence. but go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So basically, in this particular text, Prabhupada is explaining to us that most people are not educated in this confidential knowledge, right?
Right.
People are educated in other kinds of knowledge. We're educated on politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, math, and everything, right? But there's so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities. But unfortunately, there is no university or proper educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed.
Right.
And Prabhupada says, yet the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value.
Yes. Wow. Because there's no university on your soul or figuring out your purpose, or like no college course on understanding what we're supposed to do here and who God is and who we are and what's our relationship with God, which are the biggest questions in the world, but nobody studies it in college.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have Priya and I are both teachers. She used to be, and I'm currently still a teacher until I get out of that world. No, I'm kidding. It's a great world to be in. It's just, it can be exhausting. Many tired teacher jokes. But as a teacher, this is 100% correct. There's no class out there that deals with the most essential aspects of life, which is, what is our purpose? What are we doing here? You know, what is this all about? How do we reconnect with ourselves, with our source? How do we have inner peace through all the commotion of life? People leave with their degrees and feel so purposeless, you know?
Sometimes. Some people feel very purposeful. Yeah,
Yes. But some people feel purposeful, but to a certain extent.
yes.
You
Like
know?
there's got to be a time where it runs out.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because you can be the most successful doctor, lawyer, and that can be your purpose. But years down the road, if you don't have a spiritual outlet,
Yes.
you're going to feel it's all been meaningless, you know? And actually connecting it to education out there, my whole master's thesis when I did the education program, I might have mentioned this before, it was within a master's in education, so I didn't think I'd get to talk about spirituality. But for the year-long thesis, I got a professor who loves spirituality, and he said, study whatever you want. And I was like, yes, divine intervention. Thank you, Krishna, because I decided to do my entire master's thesis analyzing spirituality in children. And basically, I compared children who haven't had the opportunity to have a spiritual foundation compared to those who do have a spiritual foundation, and how that affects themselves in 3 sectors we analyzed. It was mental health, personal growth, and academic resilience.
And what were the results?
And the results,
of this?
and they were derived from the direct students that we teach. I teach 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, 350 students that I was able to analyze and gather data and studies. And it was so cool to see the scientific results from this study showed that the children who had some form of a spiritual foundation, regardless of whether it's religious or not, they had some outlet, they excelled vastly greater in those 3 sectors than children who didn't have a spiritual foundation.
Wow.
And through conducting this thesis study, there's so much research out there that shows the physical benefits, the mental benefits, on every aspect you can think of life is benefited by having a spiritual outlet. So it's not just us spiritualists talking about this. There's concrete scientific evidence out there that shows the deep benefits of this, you know?
Yeah.
And the original professor of this world, let's call him Dr. Krishna. He
I
said,
like that. Dr. Krishna.
This is the knowledge that is the king of education. Wow. And your science stuff just backed it up.
My science stuff. Yeah.
Science stuff.
Yeah, because we have some people out there that think this is just religious fanaticism, and it is absolutely not. So even if you don't have the faith to believe in this yet, okay, go the scientific route. Science shows this is beneficial. So from any route you want to approach it, this is still beneficial, you know? And Priya had read the little section about stressing the importance of the soul, which is the most important. And there's a beautiful little tidbit in this, because especially talking about the soul, especially from the 2nd chapter onwards, it stresses the importance of the soul. Because in the very beginning, right off the bat, Krishna says that this body is perishable and the soul is not perishable. So already we're starting to get, Prabhupada said, that's already the beginning of confidential knowledge. Simply knowing that the spirit soul is different from the body, and that its nature is what? Immutable, indestructible, and eternal. I know we talked about the aspects of the soul so much, we squeezed the juice out of that. But that gives no positive information about the soul, because sometimes people are under the impression that the soul is different from the body, and that when the body is finished or it's liberated from we're liberated from the body, the soul kind of goes into this void and becomes impersonal. But is that what we believe in the path of bhakti? Does the soul go into an impersonal void?
No. It goes into a petit bébé, right? If you reincarnate again.
Yeah. So basically, Prabhupada here is saying, how can the soul, which is so active within the body, be inactive after liberation from the body? It's always active. So this line I love. If it is eternal, then the soul is eternally active, and its activities in the spiritual kingdom are this most confidential part of spiritual knowledge. Again, that last line, the activities of the soul, once it goes back to the spiritual kingdom, is what this whole most confidential spiritual knowledge chapter is all about. And therefore, here we're going to talk about what is called the king of all knowledge, the most confidential part of the knowledge.
Love that. And in the second sentence, it is the purest knowledge. And this is the part that I want to dissect a little bit.
Okay.
Krishna says, because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. What does that mean?
Oh, can you read it again?
Right. So Krishna says this is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it's therefore the perfection of religion.
Because it helps you understand who you are and your relationship to Krishna. And then it's the best knowledge you can have.
And it's the perfection of religion, right? Like,
that's
and
a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, right. Religion gets such a bad rap because like there's like so many, like a lot of times rules and regulations. There's like people be like, oh, I don't want to believe in religion because it starts all these wars. Yeah, because people don't understand what the point of religion is. They don't understand what the point of spirituality is. They don't understand that like this is a beautiful, loving relationship with something greater than yourself. And it's not about how many people that you can get on your side or how much land that you can get for your people and take away from other people. Like it's not about all of that stuff. It's about this beautiful, loving bond with God.
And I mean, now with the social landscape out there, there's so much going on. We're on the brink of like catastrophes going on in other countries that we're always on the brink of catastrophe, I feel. And right now, particularly for people that follow the news, it's really bad. So if people can just have this mindset of what is really important, that would radically shift everything. I think everything would fall more into place. It's not like you say this war on land, on power, on money. And that's kind of like the story as old as time, right?
Yeah. I think the real struggle that everyone faces in life is this existential crisis. Like I think everyone goes through one at one point or another.
Every day.
You know what I mean?
Every day,
And so this, like what the point that you were making is very important because it all starts with us, right? Us, our mind. It's so incredibly simple and yet so hard to understand how it's like our mind is sometimes our enemy and we create harder circumstances for ourselves. And so it's just like understanding ourselves, understanding our relationship, what we're meant to do. It really is the best knowledge because once you get a clear understanding, we were talking about immovable forces or like I don't know the idea that there's so much in the world that is pushing, shoving, going through you and just kind of trying to shape you and push you in some direction, right? Some of those forces are Krishna and some of those forces are not. They're karma, they're Maya, they're all these other
planets,
forces, right?
The planetary influences on
astrology, all these things kind of pushing, shoving, kind of guiding you, some suffering, all these things happen. So what we want to understand and what we want to know is, wait, who am I? What's my purpose? And what am I doing here? Because understanding all of that makes you so steady and strong that no matter what forces are coming at you, you're just standing there breathing peacefully going, yep, I got this. It's okay. These things are happening. This is happening. But you know what? I know what my purpose is. I know who I am. I know where I'm going. And like these things don't have to derail me. These things don't have to, all of that, right? So it is the most confidential knowledge. Like how, and it is so personal.
Right.
But it's also Krishna's like, I got it. All of you can take it. I'm going to tell you, and each one of you can personally take that knowledge and apply it to yourselves independently and still be sort of, it's effective to everyone, even though it's so general.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And it's fascinating.
I love that.
I love that you're bringing up all these forces. And one of the biggest forces that you mentioned is karma, because there's a really beautiful little summary here in the purport on karma that it says, when the seed of a particular tree is sown, The tree doesn't appear immediately to grow. It takes some time. It's first small, sprouting plant, then it becomes the form of a tree. It bears flowers and fruits, and when it's complete, the flowers and fruits are enjoyed by the persons who have sown the seed of the tree. Similarly, a man performs a sinful act, and like a seed, it might take time to fructify. There are different stages. The sinful action might have already stopped within the individual, but the results of the fruit of that sinful action are still to be enjoyed. So it breaks it down. There are some sins which are still in the form of a seed that's about to grow. There are others which are already fructified and are giving us the fruit which we are enjoying as either distress and pain or as maybe good karma, and we're enjoying all of that. But either way, it's all at different stages. But for those of us who are engaged in this devotional service, which, as we said, is the king of all knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all these sinful reactions, whether they're fructified or in the stalk or in the form of a seed, they gradually vanished. Therefore, the purifying potency of devotional service is super strong. And I want to say one last thing about this concept of karma, because there's a teacher in this line that connects karma to giving feedback. And he says, when Krishna wants to give us feedback, he gives us karma. But is it always instant karma? No, it's spread out at different moments in the right timing. So think about when you want to give someone all the good feedback. You have to think of the right timing, the right motives. Is this coming from a good place within me? So I just loved that. When I read that, it just made me think of his class he gave on giving feedback to someone.
Oh my God.
So Krishna's feedback is karma.
What an interesting concept, okay?
Right?
Because when you think about all of the good things that happen to us, and especially the bad things that happen to us,
Yeah.
you always have this moment of like, oh, Krishna, why am I going through this? Like what? And if we're smart in our bhakti, we try to rephrase it and say, what is the lesson that I'm trying to learn in this?
Yeah.
It's hard to do that sometimes, but that's what we should be asking. It's like, what's the lesson? It's like, what is the feedback that Krishna is trying to give me in this moment? And how can I learn from it? That's karma.
Yeah.
That's
And
wild.
and I like that it's not always instant. It's just going to come at the right timing that's most beneficial for us.
Ooh.
That's so cool.
So when we want to just be the judges of someone else and like, here's the feedback you need to work on, we need to take a breath and think, how does Krishna give me feedback in life? Is it all instant? No. It's at the right, perfect timing.
It's very sometimes inopportune times in life, you know. Thanks, Krishna.
What feels inopportune, but what may be like you need all of this right now so you can really like sprout and like grow from this crazy
When it rains and
intense
pours.
experience.
Yeah. Thanks, Krishna.
Yeah. One other, unless you have another comment on that, there's the next section right after that is about perceiving the results. And I love it because they say that the results of devotional service are so perfect that you can immediately perceive the results. Like the results of when we chant, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And they say when you chant these mantras without offense, you feel some transcendental pleasure very quickly. You can become purified from all the contamination. And I love this concept that you can just feel the results so fast. Like you can start feeling yourself become grounded, become peaceful. And yeah, we can see it.
In the verse, Krishna talks about it's everlasting, it is joyfully performed, right? And if you really like put your heart and soul into this bhakti path and you do it with, like a sincere effort, you do it with consistency, you do it with love in your heart, you can feel that reciprocity. I just had a mouth fart.
No, that's great.
You can feel that reciprocity of love actually come back to you.
Yeah.
But it's an experiment, right? You can't knock it till you try it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Prabhupada has a lot of things he talks about here in the purport. He talks about karma. He talks about these things. One thing that I highlighted, and it says, a person who has completely ended the reactions of all sinful activities and who is fully engaged in pious activities, being freed from the duality of this material world, becomes engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna.
Footnotes of that. What does that mean?
So basically, a person who is done with their karma.
Right.
We're not doing good or bad karma. We're done.
I got off the elevator.
We learned all of our lessons. We got all the feedback. The feedback form has been filled out.
Yes. Every action we take is with Krishna consciousness, right? That's the whole point.
And that's how we pause that.
Yes. And so a person who's done that and who is fully engaged in pious activities, right? We're doing service to Krishna, we are doing well to others, that kind of thing. Being freed from duality of this material world, not longer worrying about whether it's hot or cold, not longer worrying about suffering or happiness, just kind of being focused. They become engaged in devotional service to Krishna. So those are kind of like the ways, the steps to get to Krishna, right?
Right.
So done with karma, done with making people suffer or suffering, you know, like all of that.
But that's like a lifelong journey.
Exactly. It's a lifelong journey.
Lives long.
Lives
Long
Lives
journey.
long. But you know what's very cool? It doesn't take any, like, advancement in this spiritual life doesn't depend on any kind of previous education or qualification. It's accessible to everybody. And because this method itself is so pure that if you just do it yourself, you become pure. And there's one part of the purport that actually really beautifully highlights this, because they say a practical example of how this is accessible to anybody can be seen in the previous life of Narada. Now, Narada was the spiritual teacher of Vyasadeva, who we just mentioned was one of the great philosophers of India. Vyasadeva wrote the Vedas, and the whole essence of the Vedas is this chapter 9, most confidential knowledge. So basically a short summary of the life of Narada. He happened to be born as the son of a maidservant. He had no education. He wasn't born into a high status family at the time. But when his mother was engaged in serving these great devotees, Narada also became engaged. And sometimes when his mother wasn't there, he also served these great devotees himself. So Narada was personally saying in one of these verses, he described his previous life to his disciple Vyasadeva. And he says that while engaged as a boy servant for those purified devotees, they stayed with him for 4 months. And when he was able to intimately associate with them, he derived so much. To me, this shows the power of association and of having the right service mood. Because when we're in that presence of a great devotee, it's almost as if their purity can rub off on us. It trickles onto us.
Yeah.
You know, you can feel it when I'm sure we're with our spiritual teachers. We're around them. It's just like, I feel like I'm a pure devotee sitting next to them, you know?
It's relevant to like anyone who you hang out with, right?
Yeah.
Like you hang out
totally.
with people who are maybe, let's say, really into nature. They like to hike, they like to swim. Then you become, wow, this is amazing. I gotta try it. I gotta be, you know, or you get hang out with people who are like
Really into ketamine. You're like, oh, I love horse trick. But, you know, I mean, drugs.
how do you manage to bring that up?
I just love that word, ketamine. I don't know why.
Dear Lord.
But you know what I mean? You hang out
Yeah.
with people who are really into like drugs and like horse tranquilizers.
And then you're like, hey,
I love
why
horse.
not?
Yeah, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? It's like, you know that thing, it's like you're the sum total of your character is the sum total of the 5 people that you hang out with most,
Totally.
right?
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's what
so
Prabhupada
cool.
says. You tell me who you associate with, I'll tell you who you are.
Right. So when we are putting ourselves, and this has happened to me personally, like when I am around people who are spiritually elevated, my teachers, my gurus, I feel inclined to learn more, to share more, to just be in that mood. It's incredible how, you know, like the wave that they do at games, you know, like and they pass it along. Woo! Yeah. Anyways, we're doing all kinds of crazy hand motions right now.
Ellen needs to put this in a reel. Otherwise, we're just acting like idiots in here.
But you know, like that, it just like it just takes over you, and you just want to be part of this great, wonderful feeling. And so,
well, and you know, before you continue, just about that, the wave and it's infectious. My mind just went to something I heard back in ice skating. We were doing a class, and we're all stroking around a big circle, zoom, zoom, zoom. And I remember
Stroking means going in circles, right?
Right.
Okay, got it. All right, got it.
It's not like something
we're
sexual.
moving on.
Okay, so basically we were ice
She
skating.
had to clarify.
Yeah. You gave me a big smile. And I
Continue.
thought, I'm only smiles that big with a few topics, astrology and other stuff. Anyway, so we were all going around in a big circle.
So you're stroking around. Okay. And then, wait, is that an ice skating term?
I mean, when you do strokes, they're like strokes in the
Oh,
ice,
that
right?
makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
Like you move your foot one
Right.
up, forward and forward.
Right.
and
So we
forward.
were
like,
doing
got it.
crossovers. Like it was one of the classes.
Anyways, go on.
So we were going really fast around the rink. And my coach, I remember him saying something like, the person that's going the fastest, if you kind of are close to them, your velocity kind of tends to pick up a little. And that might even work with
Wow.
atoms, like the one that's moving at a higher frequency. They don't lower their frequency to match lower frequency atoms, but the lower frequency ones match those. Don't quote me on the atom thing.
Yeah, if there's any scientists, please DM us
Let
to
us
see
know.
the
Let
accuracy of that
because that's
statement.
so cool.
I feel I vaguely remember being in one science class, and that maybe if it wasn't about atoms, but it was about the frequency, energy. Anyway, that applied to ice skating. So that's kind of like when you're around a great devotee. These great devotees are so much relishing the taste of this unceasing devotional service, never ending to the Lord. They hear, they chant. Their whole lives is that. And when you're around that, instead of their consciousness coming down to match yours, it's almost as if yours is elevated to match theirs. Just like the velocity in these ice skating trainings or the scientific, let's say, energy frequencies.
Yeah.
You know?
But that energy is palpable.
It's
you know what I
palpable.
mean? Like
Yeah.
spending time with people who are in like even like coming out of a kirtan, right? There are some kirtans where I walk out and I'm like, oh my God, what just happened to my body? You know what I mean? Like you feel that energy.
And that's why, connecting to the story, that's why Narada gradually developed the same taste, because he told his student the whole story that by associating with these great sages, I too was able to develop a taste for hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. And he developed a great desire for devotional service. So therefore, if we just simply engage in the acts of devotional service, everything will be automatically revealed to us. And we can also understand these ancient, most confidential king of all knowledge out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Prabhupada says one who is in association with great teachers, even if he is not educated or has never studied the Vedas, can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization.
Wow.
So like you don't even have to, you
just gotta hang out with smart people.
Just gotta hang out with smart people and the smartness will just rub off.
Yeah.
It happens even with spiritual smartness. So,
Right.
So yeah, that's really, really cool.
And they basically say, back to what Narada, rewind, Narada got the opportunity and simply achieved the highest goal of all religion, as Shama had earlier said, and that highest goal of all religion is what? Devotional service
to Krishna. Yeah, I said that. I remember saying that.
Yep.
And Prabhupada here says, the process of devotional service is a very happy one. Sukham. Right. And actually that just randomly reminded me of, my family has a dog and I don't know. I think we knew the word. Okay. So basically we named our dog Sukha. Okay. And Sukha is sweetness or like happiness. It's like this sort of like beautiful, sweet. I don't know. That's how we remember. My dad thinks we named the dog after Sukadeva Goswami, but the dog is not being named after that. Anyways, so
He was named Happy because he brought happiness to
very
you.
nice girl dog.
Nice.
Named Sukha.
You guys want to know a fun fact?
What?
Okay. Do you know the name of Krishna's dog?
What?
You're not going to believe it, actually. You're not going to believe it, okay? The name of Krishna's dog is called Viagra.
No.
Yes. Actually, you can Google it, okay?
Are we sure that's how it's said?
Krishna named
It's
his
spelled
dog.
the same way?
Definitely not. It's not the same as the pharmaceutical drug, but the dog's name is Lord Krishna's dog's name is Viagra.
Let's verify this. How do we say this?
It's Viagra.
Viagra. That's what I said.
Say it one more time, Abhijit.
Viagra.
Viagra. That's what I said.
I feel like this is like the episode in the Pink Panther when the teacher's like, I would like to buy a hamburger. And he's like, I would like to buy a hamburger.
Yeah.
I would like to buy a hamburger.
Isn't that cool? Krishna named his dog
Well, the interesting thing is,
Viagra.
yeah, no. Krishna has a puppy dog named Viagra, right? And the interesting thing, it has a meaning. The word has a meaning. Ooh. It's not what you think. It's actually Sanskrit for erection. No, I'm just kidding. It's Sanskrit for tiger.
Wow.
So Krishna named his puppy dog Tiger.
That's
so
awesome.
cute because it's like, Tiger, come here.
That was a funny joke. I did not expect that from you. That was really
Viagra,
great.
come here. That's awesome. That's such a cool name. Krishna.
So-
Don't know how we got there.
So basically,
Anywho.
we left off on the highest goal of all religion is devotional service. And there's one line here I want to say and explain. It says religious people generally don't know, or maybe they're not aware, that the highest perfection of all religion is the attainment of devotional service. And that made me think, yeah, how often do we just go through the motions? You might go to church once a week and think, yeah, I'm religious. I just sat there, heard them talk, cool. But no, we're trying to achieve devotional service. We're trying to engage everything the Lord has given us in his service. And that's the highest state of any religious path you're on. Doesn't matter what you call him. You might call him Krishna, Allah, Buddha.
Yeah, anything.
I was thinking when you just said that, it reminded me of like the idea of like, okay, you go to church and like you listen to the hymns, and like some people might be like, well, I feel uplifted and I feel inspired, and like that might be true. Like probably is true for a lot of people. And I think devotional service is this like extra thing where it's like, it's not just about how you feel.
Exactly.
It's about how you give, right? Because that's a big part of this world.
How does God feel?
We are fairly self-centered people.
Totally.
Like as a race, as a society, as whatever you want. As a species, thank you. We are very like much about how can I survive? How can I be happy? How can I? And in this case, Krishna is saying, yes, you are important. You are individual. You are everlasting. You are someone I want in my life, right? You are important, but also let's be humble and generous and considerate and all these other wonderful qualities that pertain to being there for others, right?
And serving others.
And serving others and showing love to others, because Krishna says he loves the most that devotee who is loving to his devotees, right? Who serves his devotees.
Yeah.
So,
and anyone can engage in this. To sum up the story of Narada, basically we talked about this at the end of the very last purport of chapter 8, went into how Vedic knowledge is required generally for self-realization. But this whole story about Narada shows that Narada never went to some spiritual school with a spiritual teacher. He wasn't educated in Vedic principles, but he got to acquire the highest result of Vedic studies. So this process is so potent that even if you don't do all of the other religious processes, if you just hear from someone who's pure themselves, you too can be raised to the highest platform. So I love doing this with you guys, because part of this is discussing with devotees who are sincere and open-hearted. And that's what we're doing every single week when you tune into @Modern Yogi podcast.
Yep. And Priya, something about what you said is like, it's like not only about us, but it's like how you serve other people, but it's also how you cooperate with other people, right?
Totally.
Because Prabhupada said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate with each other, right? And
That's
it's
beautiful.
like, it's not just about like us like pushing the movement forward, but it's also about like us getting along with other devotees, even non-devotees, you know, how we get along with everyone and how we serve everyone.
I love that. I love that so much. And I think it's very true. I think the more we understand ourselves, the more we understand Krishna, the more we perform devotional service to whatever capacity we can, the more we develop qualities in which we can be the best version of ourselves and treat everyone with kindness and, you know, like all of these wonderful qualities. So I love that. I love that you said that, because I've heard you say that particular quote before, and I always thought, wow, that is a really important, huge statement.
Wasn't that one of the ones that we just read in the 9 steps of devotional service? Before surrendering, it was, let me flip the page back, but basically about having good relations, right?
Oh, keeping friendships.
Keeping friendships, right?
Yeah. Maintaining
Srila
friendships.
Prabhupada knew that. And he also, I think what goes hand in hand with that thing is the next part of the purport that talks about how joyful it is and how accessible it is. Maintain good friendships. This process of devotional service is just such a happy one. Why, he says? Because it consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, and how do you pronounce the last part? Vishnu?
Smartanam? Where are you?
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu.
Smartanam.
It doesn't say
No, I don't think that's what
Smaranam.
she's saying. That's why I didn't say it.
Vishnoh. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 379 at the very top.
So that's a verse that goes Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam.
There we go. So
Yes.
yeah, and they basically, he says, one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or they can attend a philosophical lecture on this transcendental knowledge given by someone who's authorized in this line, or even simply by sitting, one can learn and eating the remnants of the food offered to God on a delicious platter. So every aspect of what you can do on this path is so joyful. Prabhupada says, in every stated devotional service, there is joy. One can execute devotional service even in, and this is the part how it's accessible, even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says he's ready to accept anything you give him with love, a flower,
It's a very special verse.
Yeah.
Patram pushpam palam toyam. Everyone has heard this verse
love that
before
verse.
because
Say it one more time in Sanskrit.
Patram pushpam palam toyam.
Beautiful.
It's like Krishna saying, no matter what, I will always accept a leaf of flower, a bit of fruit or water. And just with love and devotion, that's all that matters to
Simple
me.
things, these free
You
things.
can get water in any part of, well, some places have
You
bad
get
water.
water. You get
But
fruit off a
flowers,
tree. You
fruit.
get leaf on the floor, like
Yeah.
and just flowers in a garden. You can
So
just pick
basically,
all this
these are
free stuff.
Yeah, simple things in any part of the world that can be offered by any person, regardless of their social position. He's going to accept it if it's given with love.
Yeah, that's all that matters. That's all that Krishna wants at the end of the day.
And it's a joyful process because
Yeah.
Prabhupada used to say, like, when he started building temples and whatnot, and like the main thing that people came for, do you know what it was?
What?
Prashadam.
Prashadam.
Food,
Food, yeah.
Free, yummy food,
You
right?
know?
And who doesn't love free, yummy food, right? And so it's a joyful, beautiful process. And a big part of our Bhakti Yoga culture is offering food to Krishna. And then after he eats it, we get to gobble, gobble, gobble.
There's so many
Gobble,
like
gobble,
almost
gobble.
mystical stories in history of the Bhakti Yoga path that just by taking, let's say, a tulsi leaf that's offered to the feet of the Lord, great sages become great devotees. I know we've said different stories throughout the podcast, but it's just so powerful, and Krishna accepts anything given with love. One of the last parts I want to say also is that it's eternal. This devotional service is eternally existing. It's not maybe like an impersonal or Mayavad philosopher claim that maybe they think as long as we're not liberated, okay, we'll do devotional service. But once we become liberated and we'll become one with God, then we end devotional service. But that's kind of like a temporary view of it because devotional service is constantly going on. So Prabhupada writes, such temporary time service is not accepted as pure devotional service because actual devotional service continues after liberation. And I love this part. It says, when the devotee goes to the spiritual planet in the kingdom of God, he's also engaged there in serving the Supreme Lord. He doesn't try to become one with the Lord. So when we go to the spiritual world, we continue our service. So that's why for a devotee, whether we're in the material world or in the spiritual world, if we're doing devotional service, we're happy because that's what we're constitutionally, eternally meant to do.
Beautifully said.
Beautifully. And I know this has been a one verse episode. Please do not fret. This will not be, there's just a lot of juicy bits in here, a lot of confidential knowledge, a lot of gems of wisdom. And so, it's not always going to be a one verse episode. I don't want anybody to be sad out there and be like, man, it's just one verse. I'm trying to get through the Gita. It's one episode at a time, one verse at a time.
If you
but
were
there's
to
a
read
lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, if you were to read this on your own, it's like this is the longest purport we've seen in a long time.
Yes, it is. But we're happy to read it for you. We're happy to summarize it for
Yeah.
you. And so we will get back to you on the next episode we're still in chapter 9, text 3.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye. Hello, beautiful souls. If you like what you're hearing, please follow us on Instagram at Modern Yogi Podcast.
And if you love what you're hearing, please make sure to share a link to our podcast at Modern Yogi Podcast with all your friends, families, and long-lost cousins.
And if you have any questions at all, send us a DM on Instagram at Modern Yogi Podcast, and we'll be sure to get back to you.
Thank you for listening to
The Modern Yogi.